Good morning, everyone. I'm Charmaine Ward Milner, and I lead our corporate relations team across the state. I'm also the chair of our social justice initiative. So, welcome to our social justice webinar on mentoring. This is the last of 6 webinars that we've had to really educate and inform and drive advocacy around our social justice initiative. But before we get started, I want to start with a safety message, like we always do. So if you're at home, well, let's start with if you're not at home. If you're not at home, look in front of you, look behind you, look to the right and to the left. Make sure you know where the exit signs are so that if there is an emergency, you can easily get out. Now, if you are at home, you're probably saying, oh, I know where those exits are. And you do. But what I want you to do is look on the floor and make sure that you don't have a filing cabinet drawer open or some books stacked up on the floor or there's some toys or anything that might be an obstacle that would stop you from getting out. Also, for those of you who cook, don't leave anything on the oven or on the top on the stove or in the oven still cooking. You know that can really get us in trouble. So let's make sure all of those things are turned off because we want everybody to be safe. So with that, I want to go ahead and get started. So what I'd like to do first is just give you an overview of the Social Justice Initiative. And I will tell you that this could not be done by any one person. I have an amazing committee that has helped do all of this work at Georgia Power. And so I want to take it at a higher level first and tell you how it got started. So back in January of 2020, Tom Fanning, our CEO of Southern Company, announced moving to equity, or you might hear referred to as MTE. Moving to equity is a framework, and it is how we will make business decisions, business policies, how we will do our work in 5 critical areas of our business. And that's on the screen: talent, culture, community, political engagement, and suppliers. So just think of it as really looking at how do we drive equity in every critical part of our business. And so I'll give you an example is in the talent commitment. One of the things we've done, and some of you may be familiar with it, is that we have taken resumes and we are redacting them. So what that means is that when a manager is in the interview or the hiring process, they will get the resumes, but anything that would share with them that person's gender or race or age, those things will be erased from the resume. And it won't be until later in the hiring process, once they've gotten to their final candidates and they start to have in-person or virtual interviews, that they will actually get the full resume. And we think that this will help to drive equity in that process. And we're doing those types of things in all of these commitment areas. So it starts with this framework, moving to equity. Now, if you look at community, where we have it highlighted in red, and if you look beneath that, this is the Social Justice Initiative. So our commitment is $225 million over 5 years to advance racial equity and social justice. Now, this is by investing in distressed and disadvantaged communities. So this is what we're going to be talking about today, which is the Social Justice Initiative, which falls under this commitment. So what is this commitment, right? Next slide. So there are 4 pillars when we're talking about social justice and our investment in the community. And it actually started with 3 pillars, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So education equity, criminal justice equity, economic empowerment, and energy justice. And now it is not by happenstance that we have these areas for investment. This started with a cross-system committee that was started about 18 months ago, where we looked at where are the gaps, right? Where are the really big areas of distress in these communities? Where are the disparities? We talked to business leaders, nonprofits, we looked at best practices, we looked at data, and we also said, where are the resources that Southern Company has best utilized to make an impact? And that's how we came up with these 3 pillars. And so I'm not going to take you through all of them, but I'll just take you through, I won't take you through the detail, I'll take you to high level. And so education equity, it is the entire continuum, starting with early childhood, going to K through 12, looking at math and reading, specifically around STEAM, which I know we'll hear more about that. Also looking at investing in our educators. And then we go to higher education, where we're looking at investing in HBCUs as well as PWIs, which is primarily white institutions, but those institutions that have a large number of minority students at them. When you go to criminal justice, it starts with prevention. So investing in those programs that will prevent people from even being incarcerated or going to jail. And then if they do get in trouble, how can we invest in pre-arrest and diversion programs so they don't have to go to jail, but they can go to a program? And then if you do go to jail, you get incarcerated and you do your time, then when you come out, we want to invest in programs that can provide reentry training and wraparound services so that those individuals can be thriving members of our community. And then we also want to invest in programs that are going to help our responders so that they are aware of these programs that I just mentioned and that they understand the value and how some of the techniques of de-escalation, right? Under economic empowerment, this is a big pillar, really has two components. It's around entrepreneurship and it's around thriving communities. So let's start with entrepreneurship. Here we're looking at investing in those organizations that can help minority and small and micro businesses really understand what it means to be an entrepreneur in terms of capacity building or having access to capital or proper job training and processes, even down to financial literacy. We also want to invest in those things that will help our communities thrive. And that's around affordable housing and infrastructure. And again, those types of investments that will really help that community move to the next level. Now, energy justice is a new pillar. It was added in the last couple of months. And so that's what has taken us now to 4 pillars. And so energy justice, we start with energy burden. And that's really those individuals that are paying a significant amount of their income on their energy. And so we want to invest in organizations that can help with energy burden, as well as help with energy assistance. And that's helping people to pay for their energy bills. Think about our Salvation Army Project Share program. We also want to make sure that we invest in the organizations that give access to distressed and disadvantaged communities so that they have access to energy efficiency programs and weatherization programs. We move on to just transition, which is the whole e-cars and e-transportation, making sure that everyone has access to e-cars, that they're affordable, that we even have e-buses for our public school system. And you can't have an e-car or e-bus without having charging stations. So ensuring that there's access to charging stations in all neighborhoods across the state. And then finally, access to renewables, whether it's solar or wind or water, and then job training around sustainability and having access again for people in distressed and disadvantaged communities to have access to training for those types of jobs. And then finally, environmental justice. And this is looking at those communities that might be disadvantaged because they are fence line, which means that they are adjacent to one of our assets. It could be a headquarters, it could be a substation, it could even be one of our generation plants, as well as looking at those communities that are what we call frontline. Those are that are right in the way of critical weather consistently. Think about coastal communities. And so these are all the areas that we want to invest in. And what we know through our research is that if we are intentional, and you can see it is very intentional, we know shotgun approaches don't work. What works is intentionality, and investing specifically in these areas we think will change the trajectory of many communities. So let's look at what that investment looks like. You heard me talk about $225 million from the Southern Company, as well as I want to add, it's not just about money, it's also people. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, which is mentoring, because Southern Company also committed to 5,000 employee mentors. So now what does that mean to Georgia Power? So it's $87 million over 5 years. And you can see in the slide how that's allocated across the 4 pillars. Annually, it's $18 million. Now, for my math majors, you might be saying, wait a minute, Charmaine, that doesn't add up. And it doesn't. It doesn't add up because next year will be the first year that we invest in energy justice. And so that's why the numbers are just slightly off. But for Georgia Power, it also means 250 employee mentors. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm so excited. We know that our employees are great volunteers and that we're going to more than exceed this number. And that's why we're having this so that we can just give you more information about it. So let's move on to the next slide. And so I often get asked, okay, Charmaine, I heard you talk about moving to equity. I heard you talking about social justice. Where does DE and I come in? Now, this is a oversimplified slide, but I just want you to think about it like this. The moving to equity is kind of the umbrella framework. And underneath that is social justice, which is our external initiatives of how we're going to address, again, advancing racial equity. And then DE&I is our internal initiatives. So think about how we're going to interact with each other as Georgia Power employees, celebrating our diversity, making sure that we're inclusive. And so internal is the DE&I, and then external is the social justice. And it all falls under moving to equity. But you know what? No one can really explain this better than our CEO, Chris Womack. So I'm going to share with you a video that he's done that talks about this way better than I do. And if you do want more information, which I know you do, about our social justice initiative, the website link is at the bottom of the slide. So please show the video.
At Georgia Power, we believe it's our responsibility to be an active champion of the communities we serve. That's why we're excited to stand with our communities to tackle systemic equity issues across our state. We're committing $87 million to address these issues over the next 5 years, focusing on supporting and partnering with organizations that assist with education equity, criminal justice, energy justice, and economic empowerment. And we're building a team of more than 250 employees who will serve as mentors to our state's young people, helping shape Georgia's future leaders. This financial investment and our commitment to mentoring, while just a part of our overall equity efforts, are one way we can make a real impact in distressed and disadvantaged communities and continue to be a champion for all Georgians.
Thank you, Chris. That was awesome. So at this time, I'd like to introduce you to our amazing moderator that we have for today, and that is Rita Breen. Rita is the Executive Director of Charitable Giving. We are so excited to have her moderating this awesome panel. Rita, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Charmaine. And it is a pleasure to be here today. I have the honor of working with Charmaine and with Chris DeAndre and a bunch of other folks who have been part of this social justice team across Georgia Power. So as you saw and Charmaine explained so well, we are investing a lot of dollars in our communities over these 5 years. And it was very, very thoughtful and intentional, as she mentioned, that a part of this is also for us to have 250 mentors every year. And we have defined what that means. You see it there in front of you as at least a 1 year or a school year-based program that focuses on a continuous relationship with a young person and includes regular meetings. So if you're wondering, why did we specifically call this out as a separate pillar that really connects to all the other 4 investment pillars? So I want you to think back just for a second to when you were young, right? Mentoring is something that we really can all relate to. Maybe you didn't call it a mentor, but when we were young, somebody helped us to learn to ride that bicycle. Somebody wiped away tears in elementary school when you said, I can't do this math problem. I will never be able to, figure out how to do this. Someone else, and it might have been, your parent or a grandparent, uncle, teacher, someone in your church, they might have dusted you off when you didn't, make that home run when you were playing Little League. And later, a lot of us benefited from advice that we got about, well, after high school, what am I going to do? What kind of a career, right? So if you think back to all of that, you really see that all of us are a product of all these tremendous investments that other people made in us. And that is what has made us who we are today. So that is why mentoring is so important. And of course, there's a bunch of research, but again, I think that all of us can really relate to that. So I am so delighted that today we are joined by some very distinguished panelists who are going to talk to us more about mentoring and why it is so important and the work that they are doing, and especially about why it is so important for these underserved communities and populations that we are working with. And to bring it back to, why does Georgia Power and Southern Company, why do we also care as a corporation about all of this? Well, y'all, this is, first of all, our friends and neighbors, and we are a company that is a citizen wherever we serve. So these are our neighbors. This is also our future workforce. We've probably all heard a ton on, TV, through every news media. Labor shortage, right? Can't fill all of these jobs. Well, these are the leaders and the workforce of tomorrow. So I am so delighted to introduce to y'all our wonderful panel, Mr. Tommy Dortch, who is the national chairman of 100 Black Men of America, Mr. Wesley Fondle, who is executive director of Starbase Robbins, which is a STEM mentoring and education program, Ms. Leslie Hale, who is the executive director of Mentor Georgia, and Mr. Kwame Johnson, the president and CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Metro Atlanta. So to get us started, Tommy, if you wouldn't mind getting us kicked off, we'd love to hear from each of y'all about a little bit about yourself and the organization that you are leading, and then give us your definition of a mentor.
Well, good morning. I want to thank Georgia Power and, of course, the Southern Company family for allowing me to be a part and all of the great things that you've done and continue to do. And, of course, we're happy we have several members of the Georgia Power Southern Company family as members of the 100. The 100 Black Men of America was formed, the first chapter in 1963, the national organization 1986, founded by great leaders like, of course, the late Mayor David Dinkins, Jackie Robinson, and others. What our approach from the 100 is, what they see is what they'll be. And we have over 125,000 young people in our mentoring program. And of course, we have what is called for the Future. Everything we do has to fall in education, mentoring, health and wellness, and economic empowerment. And so we impact these 125,000 plus young people through our program, which our focus is called Smart Mentoring. It must be strategic. It must be measurable. It must be attainable. It must be realistic, and it must be targeted. And so we'll get into a little bit more of that. But the mentoring side is, it helps to make men out of men. The important thing is that the more you give, the more you get. And a trusted mentoring, in our definition, is a giver of good advice or a trusted advisor.
Wonderful. Wesley?
Good morning, and thanks to Georgia Power for inviting us all, and I appreciate being on the panel and telling you a little bit about Starbase Robbins. Starbase Robbins is a Department of Defense STEM education program. We're located here in Middle Georgia, but it is a national program. We have over 70 sites across the country, and actually 3 sites here in Georgia. And so what we're trying to do and what we have done is to bring STEM education to those marginalized students. So we work with school districts and within the school districts to get students excited about STEM and STEM learning. The STEM workforce is very important to Georgia, and as we know, important to Georgia Power as well. And so how we do that is to work with our surrounding school districts to enhance their STEM education. And we have one program where it's 5th graders that we work with that actually come to our site here at Robbins Air Force Base. But we also have an after-school program that's called Starbase 2.0, and it is mentoring based, where we work with students at their school, starting a STEM club, where mentors come in. We train those mentors to help students to learn to navigate some of the STEM challenges that are presented throughout the world. For example, this semester they're working on robotics that's looking at the distribution pipeline. And so we're here to help mentors, to help students learn their way through the STEM pipeline. And so I'm very excited to be a part of this. And to us, mentoring is that piece where we think mentees actually drive it. Mentees will let mentors know what they need, and mentors are the ones that kind of come alongside them and give them that advice that they need to navigate life and to navigate certain challenges, for example, career. And so we're glad to be a part of the conversation.
Thank you, Leslie. Leslie.
Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here, especially alongside such an incredible slate of panelists. Again, my name is Leslie Hale. I am the Executive Director of Mentor Georgia. We are based at the Fanning Institute for Leadership Development at UGA, and we are the newest statewide affiliate of the National Mentoring Partnership, which for 30 years has been the lead convener, standard bearer of the research to practice standards that govern and sort of define what effective and impactful youth mentoring looks like. So we are not a direct service provider, but rather we are a convener, we are a capacity builder, we are a champion and advocate for programs like those represented here on the panel, as well as in all 159 counties of Georgia. So that more people can come to know and understand the importance of mentoring and how to become involved in it. My definition of a mentor is someone who acts as a cheerleader, a supporter, a sounding board, and a guide to a young person, or to someone who's perhaps 1, 2, 3 rungs below them on the ladder at whatever stage in life or career they may be. So it doesn't always have to be a young person being mentored by an older person, but that level of support from someone who has a little bit more life experience or experience in a field is really key. And I love what Wesley said about a mentor being someone who comes alongside a mentee and not necessarily someone who's there thinking that they are going to lead that person toward understanding or some other great part of their life.
That's wonderful. And yeah, and that's a great point. Kwame.
Hey, Rita, and good to see everyone. Thank you to Georgia Power. Special thank you to you, Rita, for serving on our board and just doing so many things for our organization over the years. Kwame Johnson, President and CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters, Metro Atlanta. I'm sitting here in our new headquarters, which is in Southwest Atlanta at the Met, right across from the Westin MARTA station, where we're in the community serving young people. And the 2 words I always use to describe our work is defending potential. Because when you say defending potential, you acknowledge that potential is already there, that it doesn't have to be created, doesn't have to be saved. It's already there. Young people are born with hope and they're born with potential. And it's our responsibility as adults to defend that potential. And that's what we do. We have adults who provide one-on-one mentoring with young people all across Atlanta. We have programs in the community where you can become a mentor and serve and mentor a young person on the weekends, after hours. We also have programs where you can go into our schools and mentor young people at schools like Thomasville Elementary or King Middle School. And we also have programs where we actually bring young people into corporations like Cox and Home Depot, where they get assigned a mentor, but also get exposed to career and work and give them that opportunity. So I'm glad to be here to talk about mentorship. It's played a big role in my life, being a young person who was incarcerated at a young age and had people pour into me and defend my potential and give me a second chance at life. So I've dedicated my second chance at life of trying to make sure young people don't go down the same road I've been down and that we can defend their potential. So glad to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kwame. So we would love to hear from a couple of y'all, since our entire social justice initiative is very much focused on helping to uplift our underserved populations and communities. Why is it especially important for underserved children and youth to have mentors? Tommy, could you maybe kick us off? Yeah.
I'll start with that because it's important for us to all understand that it doesn't matter where you're born, it's where you go. Those in underserved communities need us to engage and invest the time in them and the resources from multiple sources, because these are the leaders. These are young people who are hungry to succeed. And again, we found out by working in these underserved communities, some of the greatest talent exists in the world. And so when we invest the time in them, what we get in return is, first, it helps us. But the other part of that is we should all understand we've been blessed with certain kinds of advantages. And it is expected that we have to give those returns back to communities. I tell you, I love it. These young people are like sponges, but I've seen them perform. So I really encourage all of us to invest in them, to work with them. But in the long run, what you're doing when we help these young people, we're helping ourselves, we're helping America, we're helping the world.
Thank you. That is so well said. And, I would say in the mentoring space, we do hear that a lot, kind of this notion that talent is everywhere, but opportunities are not. And how do we help to connect all that talent to opportunities? And mentoring is absolutely a critical component of that. Leslie, we would love to hear from you, given how your organization is not involved in direct service, but as you said, is a convener. So what are y'all seeing as some of Georgia's most pressing issues and opportunities around mentoring?
So first and foremost, the first thing that we always hear, particularly from nonprofit organizations that are engaged in mentoring, is funding. That will never not be part of the answer from organizations. But really that funding issue relates directly to capacity, staffing capacity to provide adequate training and after training support to matches. Being able to have that constant follow-up with mentor and mentee to see how things are going in the relationship, that takes human resources. It takes resources of time that many organizations often find themselves strapped for. Recruitment is another key issue. Recruitment in particular of Black men, of people of color, of people who have, if not a cultural background, a cultural competency, a cultural awareness of the communities that are being served. And so I say that to say you don't necessarily have to look like or come from the background of a young person that you're working with, but the ability to recruit people who are sensitive to different cultural backgrounds and also just willing to learn. Is really, really important and an area that organizations are constantly trying to troubleshoot around.
Rita, can I jump? Because she had a very important point, because in the mentoring space, when we worked with Gallup and others, you have first white females are one, then white males, then Black females and Black males. And it should be reversed, because we have to understand we are where we are because somebody invested time in us and took the time to help us get to where we are. And we should be returning on those investments. I commend all of the mentors, but it's a call to action to Black males, because we can't find enough who will invest the time in these great resources of this country and of our community.
That is a wonderful point, and thank you both for emphasizing that. We definitely hear that a lot in the nonprofit community, and actually one of the nonprofits that we partner with, their motto is kind of like, you can't be what you can't see, and so that also very much speaks to that. So let me know who wants to take the next discussion point, and that is, of course, we have been in a tough, last year and a half now, even a little bit more than that, with the pandemic, and even before the pandemic, in Georgia, we saw that the demand was outpacing that staff and budget growth, and Leslie, you referred to that a little bit. So share with us a little bit, maybe Wesley and Kwame and Tommy, how has the pandemic affected the work that you are doing, and what do you see as even more of a need today?
Well, I think definitely the pandemic has had an effect on the students that we serve. We know that many of the students had to shelter in place, shelter at home. There was a big gap in the technological needs that were necessary for students to continue their education. And so that was definitely something that school districts looked at, and we saw that as an opportunity where we could come alongside our school districts to help meet that need. And so it did shine a light on where marginalized students are in such a place as the pandemic, and when we're dealing with digital diversity, as I should say. And so it also hit us in the sense that since we weren't able to be present physically with those students, it's a little bit different, and we had to learn a new space, a new way of doing things, and how to connect digitally with our students. But that was an important piece because, especially for us, with looking at STEM and technology. How do we do that? How do we use technology to better those mentoring aspects? And many of us came through that, learning some awesome things that we can do via Zoom, via Teams, and all of those things. But how do we connect with those students that we're mentoring when we can't meet with them physically? And there were some lessons learned from that. And we also, I think the most important thing was that we learned is that we do need that physical presence as well. And so we're doubling down on that now, and especially with us and using that, how well we relied on STEM to meet that, to lessen that gap during the pandemic. And so we're using the pandemic as an opportunity to teach students and show them how STEM played a role in that. And so the mentors have a big part in that as well, in showing students how how we can overcome some of these challenges.
And I totally agree with Wesley. And what I would say is that poverty has always been the biggest challenge we face as a country and as a city. And that's something I've continued to try to work on, to try to solve, not eliminate, but solve poverty. And COVID has really just doubled down on poverty. And what we've learned is when families are coming in during COVID to find a mentor for their young person, they're also dealing with a host of basic need challenges. So as a nonprofit, we decided to lean into that. And we decided to not become a food bank, but to refer families to food banks that they may not know about in their community, to mental health providers, to drug abuse providers, to housing. All these issues have been exacerbated due to COVID. And mentoring is great. It does a lot of great things for young people. But as a city, we have to eliminate these basic needs so that mentorship can really happen. We know that a match can't be successful if the family's not healthy. So we've really pivoted as an organization to provide more of those referral services to wraparound services in Atlanta. And it's really about what we're doing today. It's all of us coming together. There are great organizations represented on this call today. These problems we face as a country are bigger than any one organization. And we've learned during COVID that we have to collaborate a lot more and be much more intentional about how we coordinate services, because we're all serving the same families. And in my opinion, if we layer on services, families can go further faster. And that's what we've learned. And the last piece I would say is that we have to be flexible. Cities around the country, Atlanta's changing. Families are moving outside the city. Atlanta now has the most poverty, suburban poverty in the country. And we as nonprofits have to think about how do we navigate and meet the demands of families as they move around and as things change in a post-COVID world.
And what we had to do and still continue to do with the 100, because we focus on education. A lot of these young people we're targeting are falling behind. They have to have the physical presence. And of course, school systems were having to pivot to try and make sure they provided the necessary training up to educational opportunities. We were a little bit positioned because one of the things that we had trained our individual mentors, and it's important because in our mentoring program, you have to go through training and be certified in order to mentor. We do background checks on anyone. We have the one-on-one mentoring, group mentoring. So we've been through a lot of this. And one of the supplements was to our members that even while we were mentoring before the pandemic. When you weren't physically before your mentee, you communicated with them via the electronic approach. And so that was working. So we had to step that up. The other thing we did, we provided about 3.5 million in grants to all of our chapters because we didn't want them to lag behind themselves if resources weren't available. And thanks to companies like Georgia Power and Coca-Cola and all, we had have a program with Amazon where we're able to provide iPads and other instruments to many of the younger people who didn't have access and didn't have this at home. And we work with other companies and school systems on that. So all of this, again, fell in line. And then we provided food. We did food banks ourselves. And thanks to partners and members like, again, Dr. Bryant at New Birth, they were feeding 10,000 people per weekend. And so all throughout the country, we had to provide all of those support, that kind of support. But again, here, I must say the generosity of the corporate community and foundation community really stepped in partnerships for us to be able to meet those needs. And that's what we're talking about today. It's not just about our organizations. It's about the whole community. And so the employees, leaders at Georgia Power, leaders at other corporations also joined in to help us to provide that support. But it's not over. And we got to continue to work and focus, including what we do in getting vaccines in place. We've run vaccine centers with Walmart and Walgreens and helped to work there. We provided PPEs to communities and to young people to make sure they had their mask. But all of us have to work in partnership because this pandemic is well from being over.
Those are wonderful remarks and actually lead very well into what I wanted to ask as the next question. So y'all already were referencing the different kinds of partnerships, but when it comes specifically maybe like to mentoring, do y'all partner with other organizations, and maybe like what does that look like for your organization?
Well, I
Great.
think mentoring has different aspects, and I think that's represented here by the different organizations that are here. And I think sometimes when people think of mentoring, they're on a single track of what mentoring is. And for example, we work with different organizations. It could be the Boys and Girls Club or the 100 Black Men, of getting mentors to come in. Those obviously we're specific about STEM. And we're looking at mentoring those students who feel marginalized in that STEM space. So we partner with other organizations to bring that STEM that they may not have that expertise where we do have that. And so we're looking for those mentors specifically that may have an interest in STEM and willing to come alongside a student who may feel like, hey, I may want to go into this area, but may not feel like they have it all there. And so we can partner with different organizations like 100 Black Men or the Boys and Girls Club, 100 Black Men for getting those STEM mentors, or the Boys and Girls Club, where it may be a Boys and Girls Club somewhere that may not have a specific STEM program, that are looking for a STEM program. And so I think partnership is key.
But we also, with that, and that's so true, like we have a robotics program throughout the country. Dr. Lonnie Johnson, who's one of our partners, and his research center, the creator of the Super Soaker, which is $1 billion plus. We've worked and we won Rookie of the Year with our folks in robotics, inner city youth who never imagined they could build robots that work. And we take them on exhibits throughout the country. And we work also with First Robotics. And we want to, of course, make sure we tie in with other partners. But with that, one of the things we also prepared for in 1995, I started a national men and women who work with us to help supplement. And the other thing is, we're getting up in age. So speaking the language, our collegiate are right on top of it. And then we have the emerging 100, which are young professionals 25 to 35, because we also realize you got to have a diverse group working in mentoring. But these collegiate students, and I encourage everybody, we mentor them, they mentor the young people, we mentor in partnership. But again, I have grandchildren. I have to go to make sure I get the latest slang so I can talk to my mentees that we have. But all of this in these partnerships, they really work. And all of us on here, I really look forward to working more with you and with our chapters, because we working together, it strengthens all of us.
Yes, I agree, Tommy. And I know we've done a lot of work over the years. And I'm really excited about a new partnership we're working on with a few organizations, some that have been mentioned already, to really focus in on the young boys in Atlanta who are called water boys. And the reality is, Tommy's no different than a water boy. Wesley and myself, we're no different. Right. And we had people in our lives to help direct us the right way. So we're targeting to really be a solution to some of the youth violence in Atlanta and those challenges with organizations like At Promise Center, Boys and Girls Club, 100 Black Men, Urban League, others, to really wrap our arms around these young boys and give them guidance and tap into that entrepreneurial spirit that they have and redirect it in the right way. So we're always about partnering in a very purposeful way with a goal in mind of what we're trying to do. And that's something we're working on and embarking on, and really excited about that new partnership.
And Kwame hit it on too. We were called by the Atlanta Public Safety Department and the chief of police and all on the water boys issue. And what we said was, locking these young people up won't change a thing. But these are really young entrepreneurs. Let's see how we can work with them, develop programs, and help them to get, instead of being incarcerated and all of that, let's have contracts like Judge Glenda Hatchett used to do. Instead of sending young people to detention, she called 100, and we would put them in a program and mentor with them some of the smartest young people. So, but what I want to commend the Public Safety Department of Atlanta that reached out and said, we know there are gangs infiltrating the water boys, but we want to make sure that these young people now take that talent and let's convert that talent into something that makes sense and helps them and helps their families. And so that's why we all have to partner. And people have to understand, when you incarcerate people, we pay. We have to pay for them for being locked up, and depending on what area, it costs more money to incarcerate them than to send them to college for a year.
And if I can add on to that, I think what Tommy was talking about, especially, there's great overlap, I think. He was talking about Dr. Lonnie Johnson, and we've partnered with Dr. Lonnie Johnson, and we actually host a first Lego League tournament in partnership with Georgia Tech. But to those who are looking to mentor, I think you can see that I think sometimes mentors think, or people think, hey, I can't mentor because they may not feel like they have something to offer. There's great overlap in the organizations represented here, and you can find that spot where you can mentor and can contribute to young minds. And so I think a lot of people feel like they can't mentor or they don't have anything to offer. And I would question that and say everybody has something to offer. You just have to find that niche, just like students have to find their niche. So very important, I believe.
Hey, I just had a little message from that some folks in the audience may not fully know about the Water Boys. So Kwame, can you just talk just a tad, to provide a little information about the Water Boys?
Yeah, so these are young men who are selling water on corners throughout Atlanta, and it's become a challenge. And some of the incidents have been, not the right interaction. I don't think that's the good interaction for young boys. And I think there's a lot of other opportunities, but these are young men who've been classified as water boys, and we're trying to do something to work with them and provide an alternative. So they're not arrested, like Tommy said, for a minor offense. And recovering from the juvenile justice system is very hard to do. Speaking firsthand from someone who's been through that at a young age. So, but that's who the Water Boys are.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and again, to bring it back to the work that Georgia Power is doing with our social justice framework. That is one of the reasons that criminal justice is also a pillar that's part of that, for those very reasons, and youth is a big part of that. And then I want to give a shout out to all of y'all for mentioning the robotics and STEM, because of course we are a STEM company. And we have a lot of work that we do with FIRST Robotics, but this is a great call to action for maybe some of our engineers in the audience, or even if you are not an engineer. We have lots of engineers at Georgia Power, but you probably know an engineer. So I love, Wesley, what you shared, because absolutely our engineers can come in and help and get involved in FIRST Robotics and in any of these other STEM related programs as well. So, Leslie, I would love for you to kind of kick us off and talk a little bit about, we talk about that with the program that we want our employees to get involved with, this idea of that, you get engaged for at least a year or a school year, and there is evidence that longer lasting matches are important, and sometimes they're difficult. And so I would love for you to share with us a little bit about why is it important to have something that is with the same person for a longer period of time.
Absolutely. So the research is really clear on this, that developing and facilitating that long-term relationship is what is going to pay long-term dividends. Somebody mentioned, that this is investing in a young child's life. And so sometimes those investments do take a long time to really be able to see the results. It can be hard when you aren't seeing, immediate feedback from your mentee, for example, or you don't see that they're immediately getting better grades because of their interactions with you. And so this is really about the long game in a young person's life. The research also says that a match that terminates after less than a year or less than a school year can actually have a detrimental effect on a young person. We're talking about a population of young people who perhaps, have had a lot of folks in and out of their lives, whether we're talking about family or, people in education settings, if they've changed schools a lot. And so if a mentor is one more person who's there for 6 months and then gone without any explanation, that can have serious impacts on a young person. So the length of a match is really important, and also to just seize on something that's been a running theme, that idea that you don't have to be everything to a young person. I really want to emphasize that. You don't have to be everything to a young person. You're there to be something to that young person, and to be one more anchor point in their life, in this web of support that they are going to need to be successful. And so I think coming and remembering those things, that you're there to be just one more person, to be a sounding board, to be their cheerleader, to support them, to ask questions and help them think about choices, or think about situations in their lives, rather than needing to be someone who has all the answers for them. Because very few of us want somebody to come in and tell us all of the answers, right? But having people that you can go to when you have questions is what's really important.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. So if maybe the rest of our panelists can build a little bit on, what do you think makes a mentoring relationship successful? And then, do the mentors that you work with, do they need training? How do you bring people on board, and what makes it all work?
Well, Rita, I'd like to start. In my book, The Miracles of Mentoring, How to Encourage and Lead Future Generations, it's a how-to book to mentoring, but it's 10 tickets to mentoring. I want to share those real quick because it's important, because people think they have to have some degree or some big professional title in order to be a mentor. It's just as long as you're a caring adult and willing to invest, that's very important. And then our other approach in the 100 is mentoring across a lifetime. I still have mentors now. Ambassador Andrew Young has been a mentor for years, but I have other mentors that don't have, as we say, portfolio. But the 10 tickets real quick. One, you believe that mentoring can build a trusting and loving relationship. Act as a role model for your mentee. Talk to your mentee about what is right and wrong. Again, project wholesome values as a mentor. Take satisfaction from mentoring because you believe that you have something important to offer to that right young person. The next ticket, 6, do everything you can to develop mutual trust with your mentee. It's got to be trust because young people have to trust you. You can't expect that, oh, they're just going to accept you because you said I'm going to help. The next ticket, tell your mentee that you care about them. Too many young people grow up and nobody ever tells them that they love them and they care about them. This really helps to build their self-esteem and helps to build trust. Ticket number 8 is point out the right behavior for certain situations. It's important that we just share those, and we can have to share with young people to let them know we've made mistakes, that we aren't perfect, that we've been down this road. So you don't want them thinking you're just telling me. Ticket number 9 is help your mentee develop goals. Having goals is very critical and important. And as they attain those goals, they want to attain more goals. And the last ticket is listen to whatever your mentee wants to talk about. And when you listen, you got to hear what they have to say because young people, they need to be able to share what's on their mind. And if they don't get it from us, they go to those experts, which are the young people, which is the worst place to go because they're sharing with them what they've been through. So, but mentoring, I tell you, it is so rewarding. I have mentees now that have worked in the White House who have their businesses, who are teachers in the classroom. And when you walk in somewhere and they say, oh, Mr. Dortch, it's good to see you. You were my mentor. I tell you, you can't put a value on that. So these young people, you get as much as you give. So I hope people will take the time. And the other point was just made. Don't get involved in the life of that young person and leave. You can do more damage. It's better you never show up because they start to trust you and believe in you and you abandon them. They're not going to trust anybody else. So those are just some of the things. But I tell you, it's so rewarding when you really build that relationship and these young people really can advise you and help you in your whole life.
Exactly. And Tommy, you hit on all the key things that we do here at Big Brothers Big Sisters when we make matches. A few things I would add is that we do a lot of training with our mentors to make sure when you are matched, you're properly prepared. Because I agree with Tommy, anybody can do this. This is something anybody can lean into, and we train you to make sure you're successful. Make sure you know about mandated reporting. Train you on issues that may come up in a match. Give you, a plan of action with the young person. And the next thing we do is also provide you with a coach because we know mentoring relationships can be challenging sometimes. So we're a resource to not only the little in the program, also to the big, but also to the family. We provide that sort of middle person to provide support and check-ins on an ongoing basis to help that match, like you said, Leslie, at least make it to that year. Because we know if it doesn't, it can do more harm. And we try to get our matches to at least 3 years, which is our average. So it's that training and then also that ongoing support is important too in a mentoring relationship.
Yeah, and I think that's very important, as Tommy and Kwame has said. We do the same thing is to train our mentors, especially in that STEM area. We're not always looking for the engineers and stuff like that. People say, well, I don't know, anything about STEM. What we're looking for are those mentors who will show up. And 90% of mentoring is showing up. So you don't have to know the STEM, you don't have to know this or that, it's showing up. Because what those young people look at is if you're showing up every week, and our time frame is a little shorter, usually it's the school year. And I agree with Leslie, it has to be at least that school year. But if you drop out even in that school year, those students turn that inward a lot of times. So 90% of mentoring is just showing up. And I think the other maybe 5% is listening, right? You don't have to do a whole lot of talking. And then I guess that other 5% maybe, imparting into that student. But again, 90% of it is just showing up for those students that you're mentoring.
And if everybody says, oh, I'm so busy, Group mentoring works too. So if it's 2 or 3 of you and say, okay, we're going to take this young man and young lady, this day I'm busy, but my partner here, because you work together in the group mentoring, somebody shows up from that group so that the young person gets comfortable. They know you're going to be there. And so you work it that way. But I tell you, if you did 1 hour a week consistently for every week, as long as you show up, it's not, I've got to do an 8-hour day, but you got to be consistent in the life of that young person. And the other thing I caution you, don't get into a relationship where they want to make you the surrogate father or mother for the whole family, because you can ruin that young person. If your mentee is there, they begin to wonder and get jealous if you're putting more time in with the other siblings and not giving them time. It's okay to be familiar, but remember, if you have a mentee, that is your mentee that you stay focused on, and you don't start going in and taking gifts to everybody and they start expecting that you're going to be the provider and not the mentor. So there are things, that's why the training is so critical, for you to go through training, to be able to ask questions to your sponsoring organization or leaders. But again, it can be great. And one of the things I did with all of my mentees is introduce them into my family and make sure that they felt a part of my whole family. And whenever I took my sons or daughters somewhere, they were included with me and with the family. And so it is just amazing the impact that you can make on the lives of these young people just by investing even an hour a week, consistently every week. Because if you invest that hour, I assure you, you're going to want to put more time in. So it's very important.
And those are really, I'm sorry, Leslie, go ahead.
I was going to say, to tie some of what these wonderful folks who run programming have shared into a bow. When you're looking for a program to volunteer with, ask about what the training looks like for their mentors. Ask about the length of that initial training. You want it to be at least a couple of hours to feel like you're being adequately prepared, that you're getting an overview of what the program looks like. And ask about what ongoing support looks like after you've been matched with your mentee. That's one of those pieces that really can't be neglected. And you want to know who your point of contact is. You want to know who you go to if you have questions or you're running into an issue during your mentoring sessions. Getting access to a mentee in a school-based setting, you want to know that you have that support to turn to, and that someone is going to be making contact with you on a regular basis. So it's okay to ask some questions about the logistics and the support pieces offered to you as a volunteer, because when it comes down to it, that's what is going to ensure a successful match, that you also feel supported as the volunteer and as the mentor in that relationship, because nobody's expecting you to have all of the answers. However, knowing that you know where to go if you do have questions or need other support is really important in building a successful relationship.
And since the pandemic, we do online training. We can track that you've been in. We have 12 modules. It's Mentoring the 100 Way, that you go online. We give you a portal. And as you complete those, you have to complete all 12 modules to be certified. Dr. Joshua Murphy, who's a clinical psychologist, is the only national chair we've had since 1994. And he helps to design these modules. Now, cautiously, we're going in and doing some in-person training with our chapters. But again, if our members of our chapters don't complete the training, we don't allow them to mentor, because it's important for organizations and individuals to understand you don't want to have any violations or any problems in protecting the integrity of your organization or whomever. So we do that. And the background checks that we do, we have members of who are members of the FBI, who are members of the Public Safety Department. So everybody doesn't see the background. We have one person who handles that. And folks, it's not about trying to discourage you when it protects you as well. And that's why the background checks, if you look at some other national organizations, they're pretty much bankrupt from suits that have come because some people have violated the rules and some have broken the law. But I tell you, that's worth it. I've been through it. I make sure I get my background checks. I do my ongoing training. As a national chair, I have to lead by example. So I do the training, even though I've written the book on mentoring, I still go through the process. But I just wanted people to know, again, the value of this is just for you. It's just as much for you, again, as we say, what they see is what they'll be.
And Tommy, I see here that my wonderful boss and your old friend, Mr. Mike Anderson, is giving you a shout out, and saying that he appreciates all the conversation about also like paying it forward. And I wanted to just summarize for our audience that these were some tremendous points that y'all made. That there are different kinds of training programs, but that quality programs all provide some type of training. And as Leslie pointed out, as you're exploring things, you should be asking for that training. And then the other really important point is there truly is a variety of how you can get involved, because there are programs where you could do things on the weekend with a child in the community. Tommy mentioned how can you give that 1 hour a week. There are opportunities to do some things virtually. There are opportunities that Kwame mentioned where people come to different workplaces, or people go to schools, and of course Wesley mentioned some of those as well. So the bottom line is, there's no excuse, right? That if we just all try to get engaged, there is such a tremendous variety of programs for people to get involved with. So I also wanted to share for y'all to share a little bit more with our audience, and some of you already started to hit on it, that the fascinating thing about mentoring is that a lot of times when people start out, right, they think of, hey, I'm going to help this child or this young person with whatever. But we really find, and what we see is that it very much is a two-way street. And so can y'all share a little bit about what you hear and see in how mentors themselves are benefiting from engaging in these relationships?
Whenever I talk to a big in our program who's a mentor, what they always say, which is very interesting, is that they get more out of it than they put in. And I think that's pretty special about mentoring. I mentor a young man, Anthony, who's 8. His father died in a motorcycle accident when he was 2. And as Tommy said, I'm not stepping in to be his surrogate father. I'm just trying to be a guide to him. But we actually measure the benefits that our bigs get. They're more healthy. They do better on their job. They have a more positive outlook. So it's very special how mentoring can not only benefit the young person, in our case, the little, but also benefit the big, the mentor in the program. And I think that's pretty special.
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot of times that mentoring piece, or being a mentor, allows you to take the focus off of you, be it whatever it may be, the struggles or whatever of just living sometimes, especially during the pandemic. But a lot of times we turn, our attention on ourselves, and sometimes that can be burdensome. So when you're then putting that attention on someone else, it allows some type of a release, and it shows you that you're not the center focus, right? And so what I hear from our mentors a lot of times is that they like imparting into our students. And again, I use that word, coming alongside them and guiding them, and seeing that the students really enjoy their presence, their being there. It's not so much of, again, talking and pouring out all your knowledge. It's just being there. And so what I hear from our mentors is that that's an important piece to them. We have mentors who show up, it's usually 2 hours a week for some of our STEM after school clubs. But then we do those robotic tournaments. All of our clubs have are entered into a robotics tournament. Those mentors show up on Saturday, usually for an 8-hour day. And so that, I think, speaks volumes of, they're not doing it because they have to, or it's a mandate or something. They're doing it because the love of what they're doing and imparting into the students.
I tell you, it's. I think back and I look at where we're and where we're going. When we first started our mentoring program in 1986 as a national organization, we decided to go to the Bankhead community. We partnered with Archer High School. And when we got there with the young people, we thought we were just going to take them out. We took them to the Ritz-Carlton on one day to take them out for lunch. And, it was a learning experience. They were eating with their hands and all this other stuff. But we said there are other things we have to do. There were young people, and it's important for those who are listening, who lived in the Bankhead area and the blue dome of the Hyatt Regency. They used to call it the spaceship, but they had never been in downtown Atlanta. Can you imagine being that close, living in this community, and you haven't been in the downtown area? We said never again. Until we take them to events, we work with them. But let me tell you, you've never seen so many grown men in tears was when they graduated from high school and we had them all dressed out in tuxedos and all at a formal event and so well prepared. We had tears from men all throughout that room. And to the day, we got young people like Sonia Jeltz who wanted to be an executive secretary when we started working, because we never tell a young person they're right or wrong when they talk about the career they want. You tell them why education and other things are important and character. Sonia Jeltz said she wanted to be an executive secretary. We worked with her. She graduated with honors. At that time, only about 43% of her 8th grade class was graduating from Archer. When we got through from those 4 years, 96% of them graduated. We went back and got 2 other dropouts. They came back, they graduated, even after having children. We lost 1 student. But the point I wanted to make quickly is Sonia graduated because we promised all of them we would pay whatever it cost for their education. She graduated, she was accepted at Syracuse University, graduated with honors, and came back and said, I know you only committed to pay for undergrad, but I want to go to graduate school. We said, no problem, we paid for that. Today, Sonia Jeltz is a city council person in Connecticut. She also worked for Fortune 100 companies. She has a PhD, but it's just an example that you don't tell them they're right or wrong. You show them a way of how you can make it. And she still has the same mentor working with her and her family and her children. We got stories like that. That's why we talk about the miracles of mentoring. Young man, 6'7" in Charlotte, said he wanted to be a concert pianist. They tried to get him to play sports. He said, no, the first mentor tried to guide him that way. They changed the mentor, gave him a 6'9" mentor who said, if that's what you want, this is what you must do. He went on to Juilliard. He's now a concert pianist. We can go through all of those, but the important thing is these young folks are so talented. You put in the time, but for us today, we're still feeling the effects. You cannot pay for that feeling from being involved. And there's so many people at Georgia Power who can make that impact. And you're talking about mentoring across a lifetime. And these young people today, many of them are members of our chapter who started in those classes. So I just encourage everybody, give it a try. Do group mentoring if you don't think you can do one-on-one, but you've got something to offer. The fact that you're at Georgia Power, I can assure you, you got something to offer. Let's offer it to the community and to the young people.
That is a great rallying cry, and actually, Tommy, that was our kind of last discussion point as we start to wrap up. So if y'all, the rest of y'all want to add a little bit to what are some of these ways to reinforce how Georgia Power and our employees can get involved in mentoring.
So obviously volunteering, we are talking about that up and down, but there are a lot of other ways that you can support mentoring efforts, support mentoring programs. Many organizations that do this work are nonprofit organizations. And so asking about board membership, seeing what organizations are in your community or the communities that you serve that need board members with all different backgrounds. Donations. Many of these same organizations operate based on donations, on charitable donations. Volunteers who have skills that they can offer. So, whether you are volunteering as a mentor or you want to contribute in another way because maybe volunteering once a week isn't a commitment that you can make, seeing if there are specific skills that organizations are looking for that maybe you have that you can lend to them to help them with some of those capacity issues that they're facing. And then one of the last things that I will mention, just from my perspective as an organization that leads professional development, capacity building, training and best practices, if you talk with an organization that says, well, no, we don't provide training for our mentors, or no, we don't do background checks, that is an area of concern, but that does not mean that we can't help those organizations develop what they need to meet some of those really important standards to, at the very least, ensure that they are protecting the children that they work with. So please feel free to send them to Mentor Georgia if you talk to an organization and think, well, they have some processes that maybe they could tighten up before I would want to work with them. That is the role that Mentor Georgia is here to play, is to make sure that any organization that's engaging in this work has the tools, the resources, the know-how to meet their mission and to do it effectively and with safeguards in place for the children that they're serving.
Thank you, Leslie. I actually see from Rosa here that we did just get a couple of questions from the audience. So I want to share this one with y'all. Are you all seeing barriers in mentoring in communities such as the Latinx community that may not be as familiar with the concept of mentoring?
Yes, and I was actually going to mention that, Rita, because I found out that the word mentoring doesn't exist in the Latin language, in Spanish. And I had to think about that because we have a lot of Hispanic families that come in and we have to explain to them what mentoring is, because in their culture, it's family. It's actually part of what they do. So they don't need the word. And, what I'm hoping we can do as a state, as a city, is make mentoring a part of what we do here. Whether it's group mentoring, one-on-one mentoring, whether it's with any of these organizations on this Zoom today, it's really about all of us reaching back and helping young people, because we all can do it. This is something we can all do. And I believe if we actually made that a fabric of our community, we would have a very different city, a very different state, very different country. 99% of the young people we work with never touch the criminal justice system, 99%. 97% graduate on time. 95% are promoted to the next grade level. And I know all these organizations can rattle off the same results. So let's make this a part of the fabric of what we do here in Atlanta.
And we in many of us, like Texas, New York, California, we have a number of Latino brothers and sisters and young people in our programs, because every chapter is connected to the local public school system. That's been a part of what we do. And so in the classroom, it doesn't matter what your race, religious orientation is. If you're in that class we're working with, we work with you, and we have partners. Even if you're not a member of the 100, we have partnerships with individuals who can volunteer and be a part of what we do. We just require them to have to go through the training and be a part of what we do in working. But we do have an opportunity, and whatever city there is and whatever school, we find some way to work with them with what we do. We run 5 schools, for example, in the New York area that we started. Bloomberg gave us $52 million for those schools to expand them. And we have we put in one in Harlem, one in Manhattan, one over in Newark. But in those schools, we have diverse teachers and young teachers who work with us to help us really move it. But again, there are opportunities. And I want to give a shout out quick. Michael Anderson, one of our members, Mike, really has been phenomenal in making sure those resources are invested. Chris Womack is a member. Pedro Cherry is a member. We just got so many great members of Georgia Power who are working with us, and we invite others to come and join us, be a part of the organization, volunteer with us. We can't get enough mentors.
Well, listen, Thank you all so very much for your engagement today. And Tommy, you got another shout out here from Bentina Terry, who says, and that was, I think, when you were giving all those wonderful examples of the successes that some of the mentees have had. So a shout out from Bentina, who is our social justice executive champion for our efforts. And so Wesley and Tommy and Leslie and Kwame, thank you all so very much for being with us today. You've shared a lot. I think you've given us a great call to action. And I want to kind of, before I turn it over to Rosa, just end on this thought. I went back to the very first webinar that Charmaine and this team put together, and one of the panelists said this, and it really stuck with me. So I'm going to keep it for years going forward. And she said, every child deserves someone who is so crazy about them that they refuse to let them fail. And I think that's a very powerful statement. And if we can make mentoring just that thing that Kwame, you mentioned, that this is just what we do, we will do right by all of our friends and neighbors. So thank you all so very much. And Rosa, I will turn that back to you.
Thank you, Rita. Appreciate that. What an awesome event. All the information that has been shared. It has been it's been eye-opening. So thank you, Rita. And what an awesome job each and every one of the panelists have done, for sure, to share about what mentoring means and the importance of being a mentor and how we as a company and individually should be engaging. With that in mind, as part of the Social Justice Initiative, a database that houses nonprofit organizations across the state of Georgia that is offering mentoring programs has been created. So you can find the link to this database in the Social Justice Toolkit housed in the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion website. So let's navigate to that page now. And we should be looking at our mentoring database page here, and I'm going to walk you through how to go through this page. So this is our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion page. And on this page, you'll see it on the left side at the bottom, you'll see Social Justice Toolkit. So once you click on that toolkit, it should navigate to the page of our website here. And I'm going to go live through this demo. So I'm going to click Social Justice Toolkit, and it brings us to this page here. This is our Moving to Equity explanation. You'll see social justice here. You have watched the Chris Womack video where he explains to us the importance of social justice. This is our Circuit Talks social justice series. And as you scroll down, you'll see the various toolkits here. And then you'll come to the mentoring programs. You can either click here or learn more. It will take you to this form where this platform here is where you're gonna register or share your interest as a mentor. So it's not a commitment. It is not a commitment that you're going to be signed up to be a mentor. Rather, it's a tool for us to know that you are interested in being a mentor, and that way you can have access to the database that has been put together. So to gain access to the database of nonprofits, organizations across Georgia, just click here. This questionnaire is going to capture your email address. So your name here, co.com, operating company, and we have incorporated the various opcos available, Georgia Power, organization, capture your title as well. It's going to capture a demographic here for you to identify yourself. And then here is for us to tell us what organizations you are interested in mentoring or serving as a mentor, or if you are already mentoring, congratulations and thank you for volunteering. And please indicate that here in this box. Let us know what organizations you're already a mentor and participating in. So once you have completed all of this information, you can just click submit, and it's going to bring you to the confirmation page. This confirmation page is going to give you a summary of the information that you have entered. It's going to give you instructions and tell you what you need to do to move forward. So if you are going to mentor and have an organization in mind that you want to mentor with, you'll need to reach out to that specific organization so that you can go through their process of vetting and enrolling in their program. The panelists mentioned, right, that they do background checks and whatnot. So, and they do, some of them provide training. So make sure that you contact that specific organization to go through their process. To gain access to the database, here over to the right, you'll see the click here sign, and this will take you to the database. Once you click on here, it should open the database in an Excel format. And let's give it just a minute. It's working, and connection has not been great for me. So what I have done is I already pulled it up on my end. So the database is going to look like this. It's going to bring you to the dashboard. This is what the dashboard of the database looks like today. Here over to the right, or to the left rather, you have the mentoring dashboard and every operating company. These are all hyperlinks. You can jump to each one of these operating companies so that you can see what mentoring organizations are listed. If in the event that you are searching for an organization and it's not listed, then here at the bottom, you can click on Add Mentoring Organization. And I'm going to go through this first so that we can see that once you click on that, it's going to bring you to a Microsoft Forms. And that Microsoft Forms, once it populates, it's going to look like this. And here, what it's going to do is going to capture information that is going to fill that database, that is going to populate that database. Once you complete all the information here that we're asking for that specific organization, then you can click submit, and that's going to be routed to our mentoring team, who's going to be adding that to the database. So let's get back to the database here. So let's go look at Georgia Power. Here on my hyperlinks here on the left, I'm going to click on Georgia Power. And this is going to bring me to all of the organizations that are within Georgia, or the state of Georgia, really, because Georgia Power functions in the state of Georgia. And you can sort or filter by area or county. You can search or filter by city or by mentoring focus. So let's say I want to see organizations in Fulton County. I can click Fulton. It's going to tell me that these 3 cities are listed in here in this database. And they are focused on LGBTQ and the youth. I can clear all of my filters and start over again by clicking this button here. And I can go back and select another county, and it's going to bring up those organizations within that county. Again, it's going to tell me that these are focused in Douglasville, and it's going to be focused on youth. You can start by any. Maybe I want to focus just on young women. And so I'm going to click on young women, and it's going to tell me that there are programs available in Conyers and Decatur, which is DeKalb and Rockdale County. If the organization, again, is not listed, the one that you're looking for, the one that you're already mentoring with, then please go ahead and add the mentoring organization. You can do this from any page. Let's clear the filters, and from here, you can navigate to each one of those pages. We are working with our partners across the system to populate each one of their pages. So you have Georgia Power, you have Mississippi Power, we have added Southern Power, Power Secure, then you have Southern Company Ops, Southern Company Corp, and of course our friends are Atlanta Gas. And let's see, so most of these organizations work primarily in Georgia. So most of these organizations are already populated with the information for Georgia. Again, once we get all the information into the database, we will add a filter for state, because like Southern Gas, they are across the country. So it serves us to add a state filter for them to go into the specific state and then filter there from there. So if we want to get back to the data, to the dashboard, we just click up here, and it's going to bring us back to our dashboard where we started. Here at the bottom, you'll see what is required to be a mentor for the social justice commitment, and what is youth mentoring a key pillar, or why is it a key pillar for the social justice commitment. And Rita, she very graciously went through this information during our webinar. And once we send the link, the recording out to you, you can definitely go back and rewatch it so you can see more about it. So at this time, what I'm going to do is send it to, or transfer this over to Chris. Chris DeAndre is going to walk us through on how to log in all the wonderful hours that you're investing mentoring as volunteers. So Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Rosa. I appreciate that. Let me get my screen shared here. And as you'll see on your screen, there's a it'll show you've got a link down there for the georgiapower.mygive360.com. This link is the same link that you go to enter any citizens activity that you have, to do Club of Hearts. So we're trying to consolidate things on the platform so that there's one place to go to where you can find to do any and all of the stuff that we do from a volunteering perspective. So I'll click through and walk you through this. There will also be a guide on the website that we'll put out there about how to do this, but I want to walk through it with you and just show you how you can report your hours. And as you'll see, it'll pop up. We do have single sign-on for these, so you don't have to have multiple sign-ons or anything. Just use your normal NTID and sign-on. And we'll give it a minute here. Okay, it'll pop up to this is my dashboard, and you can see it'll have some stuff populated there. You can see up at the top, you've got Club of Hearts and Citizens, but what we want to do is where we can report the hours. So you come down here to my profile, and it'll pull up your profile, and there's information that you can check and look through out here for another time. But come right over here to where it says volunteer. And if it'll pull up, these are some test volunteering that I have done in the past. So you'll see this plus sign up here. If you click on that plus sign, it'll add a volunteering opportunity. Now, we don't want you to have to remember every single thing about where you mentor, just the title is enough. So we've if you go up here and if you typed in GPC, it will populate with this GPC Social Justice Mentoring Initiative. That way, it'll all capture it under one heading. Once you get that and search it, it will populate with this pre-populated EIN number. This is where you want to put in the actual agency that you're mentoring with. So if I click this arrow here, it'll pop up and say, okay, so I'll be mentoring at the ABC Mentoring Inc. And this is the date that I mentored, and let's say I mentored for 5 hours that day. I'll put 5 here, save my volunteer time, and you'll see that one populated here. You'll also receive an email that will tell you that that's populated out there, and then you can also you can track those, or you can also pull a report through this. Again, for those that are already mentoring, you don't have to worry if the agency's not in the database. Just go in there and follow those steps, and you can populate it, and you can backdate it. If you've been mentoring for a while, you can go ahead and put those in there as well. Again, that's a very simple run through of it, but we will have those steps out there on the website for you to walk through. I'll be happy to help anybody with them. But Rosa, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Chris. So as you can see, we have a lot of great information here ready for you to use to either enter organizations that you have been mentoring with, or tell us that you have been mentoring. So if you are already mentoring, please send an email to GPC Mentoring, and the email is showing on the screen. It's mentoring@southernco.com. And if you're interested in mentoring or the organization's not in, again, use that database to submit that organization so we make sure that we capture it. And then just as important, please log in your volunteer hours, report them And there's the website again on the screen for you to reference. And as we close out, I want to remind you that there is a survey that's going to be coming out. And please fill it out. We want to hear from you. We appreciate all of your feedback. And coming up, or coming soon on December 7th, is the next webinar where all of our moderators are going to be coming together and giving us an overview of all of the social justice pillars. So stay tuned for that and be watching out for that invitation to come out. Thank you, everyone, for your attention. Thank you, all the panelists and moderators. Moderators, just you. Rita, thank you. Awesome job for all of you. I appreciate your time, and you guys have a great afternoon. Thank you.